Hello, everyone. This is Danny Burmawi. I will try to do this more often. But tonight, I want to respond to those who say that there's no such a thing as Judeo Christian values. Christianity is superior to Judaism. Jews reject Jesus. Therefore, no Judeo Christian. Even this term, it was introduced in the 1930s. It is a Jewish attempt to control Christians. Of course, after October 7, everything was weaponized and used in order to vilify Israel and attack Israel by the useful idiots and their partners. I will assume that they're doing this in good faith. That they think, how is it possible that Jews and Christians, they share the same foundations while Jews reject Jesus? I just saw a post on X yesterday. It's a Catholic priest, and of course the Catholic Church is doing an amazing job attacking Israel all the time, weaponizing replacement theology. But anyway, this is a different discussion, and I never stay on topic, so bear with me. So this priest, he was saying that Christian values, we believe in Jesus. Jewish values, they reject Jesus. Therefore, no Judeo-Christian. Well, I know that Catholic priests, usually they're intellectual, they educated, but this particular one, he seems to be an idiot because he is just like the rest of those who, not in good faith, attack the Judeo-Christian term. They confuse soteriological, Christological salvation doctrine with the moral foundations. No one who says that or uses the Judeo-Christian term means that Jews and Christians both believe in the same doctrines. No one. When we use Judeo-Christian, we mean the same ethical framework, the same foundational principles that built the Judeo-Christian civilization. So this confusion of if you don't believe in Jesus, then you're against Christianity is not correct in this context. The Judeo-Christian, maybe as a term, it was introduced in the 1930s or in the 18th century. There is some, I can't remember, but maybe in the 17th century it was used. But anyway, it doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. When Jesus stood on the mountain and he was teaching his disciples, he was not introducing or inventing a new moral framework. He was doing exposition of the Old Testament. He was explaining to the Pharisees, to the Jews of his time, what the Torah meant. So, for example, if you hate your brother, you're a murderer. This is not a new invention. This is from the Torah, because God said, I never look at the eyes, I look at the heart. And if in your heart you hate your brother, and if the conditions are right, if the circumstances are right, you would kill him, then you're a killer. It doesn't matter if you did the action or not. But anyway, this is like, you can read about this. Jesus came to, it doesn't make sense from a Christian perspective to assume that Jesus invented a new moral compass. Doesn't make sense, because we believe that the God of the Old Testament and Jesus are one, because Christians believe in the Trinity. So how is it possible that actually, those who say that there's no such a thing as Judeo-Christian, they are saying we are pagans. Why? because they are separating Jesus from the God of the Old Testament. That is paganism. If the New Testament is not rooted in the Jewish scripture, you have invented a new religion, and that is paganism. If you're pagan, then yeah. There is no Judeo Christian. But if you're a biblical believer, if you worship the God of the Bible, and you say there is no Judeo Christian, you're an idiot or ignorant or a liar. Some of you, you know the truth, but this is useful now because it serves your political agenda. But anyway, so this is like the confusion, the first thing. The second thing is that I want you to think of a homeless person suing Elon Musk. Both of them stand in front of a judge. And the judge is looking at the case, and he's going to rule for whoever has the right. He's not looking at the wealth of Elon Musk or how the homeless is not contributing nothing to the society. He is not connecting their values to what they are bringing to the table. He is connecting their values to what? To the Imago Dei. God created man in the image of God. Well, that is a biblical concept in the book of Genesis. Genesis, I believe, 1:27, if I'm not mistaken. Anyway, so that concept actually, that it is the most important concept in political philosophy in history, because you cannot find it anywhere else. In Islam, your value is attached to your religious affiliation. If you're a Muslim, you have more rights than non-Muslims. And this is not an attack against Islam. No. This is like what they believe. Muslims have more rights than non-Muslims. And apostate like me or atheist, they have no value. But anyway, so in Hinduism, it's a hierarchical system. Your value differs from one person to another. Greek philosophy, Aristotle, he preached a caste system. He said that some men are born slaves. So no philosophy, no religion introduced this concept that men have value because they were created in the image of God, except the biblical God. And Christianity built on that assumption. It did not introduce something different. It assumed that the readers, the followers of Christ, would believe that, because Christ did not come to abolish what the God of Israel said. He came to expose it, to globalize it. So anyway, now the Judeo Christian principles, the intrinsic dignity of humans, freedom of conscience, why you are born free, because not because power decides, not because government says, yeah, you're free. No, you're free because you were created in the image of God, and you have the freedom to choose, right? And this freedom of conscience, or wrestling for truth, is also biblical principle. Jacob, he in the book of Genesis, he was Jacob. He wrestled with God and he emerged as Israel. So that transformative wrestling, that is a Western invention. That is not universal. It is a Judeo-Christian invention. But anyway, this system, the so-called the Western civilization, the Western values, they were secularized, severed from their God, and introduced to the world as human achievements. And then this secular system, which was built on the biblical foundation, was globalized. And the rest of the world embraced it as, human consensus, or, people agree on this. This is universal. But in fact, if it was not for the Western power, strength, and influence, if the Western civilization is not controlling the world, then this system that the West invented or produced to the rest of the world, it would be abandoned. Each system will go back to its own tradition. Islamic countries, they would apply Sharia law. In China, God knows what system we'll end up with. Even now, with the Western hegemony, look what is happening in China when it comes to human rights. So yeah, this secularization and the globalization of the Western principles did not change the fact that they are Judeo Christian principles. And the fact that it was Christians who globalized it, because, the numbers of Christians, billions and 15 million Jews, doesn't mean that these principles are not Jewish too. Actually, it is Jewish because the Jewish scripture, it was the root of what became Christian principles or Christian values. So yeah, I hope that this is helpful and is adding something to this debate. And I hope that the useful idiots would understand. Thank you.